Erik is going to stay with us for the panel discussion, so will Andrews. But we have 3 panelists that you haven't heard from yet. And because Riina joined us at the very end, I'm going to ask her to introduce herself very, very briefly. Should be working.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, I'm the Estonian here. I think the only one. I came from Tallinn, and I actually have a mission. I'm currently doing what Andrius has been doing here for several years. I'm setting together Estonian Maritime Cluster as an organization or some kind of organized way of approaching maritime field in general and also Estonian public sector. But otherwise, I have 20 years in maritime field. I've dealt with investments in Ministry of Finance, in Port of Tallinn, and now I run my own consultancy company. And this is under which I also do this maritime cluster project for Ministry of Climate.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now, Romualda, can we ask you for a brief intro?
Hello, my name is Romualda. I'm from Innovation Agency Lithuania, and today I have 2 missions. One mission is for business, to listen to companies, to understand the demand of companies, and also represent our agency. And the second mission is to promote gender balance, because I believe that 40% is minimum, but it's much better than 0. So
you're not counting me here, so there's 40%.
I wish that you include the women quotes in discussion panels from the next year.
Yeah, so whom they forget, a woman. Whom they do not have a speech, a woman. At least you invited us to the panel. Thanks.
Have you seen morning discussions?
Only the LNG lady was included.
I did.
And Darius, you're the last one to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I'm the local one, so my name is Darius Daunys. I'm representing local academia. Klaipėda University is the only university, the coastal university in Lithuania. So dealing with all the aspects from the humanities sciences up to the technologies and environmental sciences. So we are small-sized university in European terms. And my responsibility is to drive strategical development of the research. So my duties are based on I'm Vice-Rector for Research and Innovation. So basically, my duty is to bring the science research done at the university closer to the regional market, to the society, regional society.
Thank you very much. When I was listening to the presentations, I made a couple of notes here, and some of them are, we make things look bigger when working together, a lot bigger actually, Andrew said. He also mentioned crazy people, so there's some diversity that I see there, so diversity definitely helps. Getting competitive advantage, that is something that I also heard. You can never do it on your own, and even team up with your competitor to do more. So there is a lot of very positive stuff here, but there's also, and I mentioned that at the very beginning, there's also quite a bit of quite a few things to improve when it comes to collaboration and collaborative innovation. And I'll give you a couple of examples to start the discussion. Simona was so kind that she mentioned that I work with the entire region, and over the last 10 years, I've seen quite a few different interesting examples of how collaboration is not working in the region. And one of those examples is a professor from Slovenia, whom I asked a couple of years ago whether he would like to collaborate, for example, with North Macedonia. And he said, well, if you asked me to actually go to the UK and maybe, to Oxford University, I would gladly go. I would even pay my own ticket. I would do anything to be there. But if you asked me to go to Macedonia, I don't think I could learn anything, and for sure they would have to definitely pay for my trip there. So that's one example. He saw that Macedonia would not offer anything. And staying with Macedonia, but a slightly different case, 6 years ago, we were running a research project for the first time, and this was about investment. And we talked to investment promotion agencies in 23 countries that we cover. And once we have done the research, had done the research and published the results, I was contacted by the Directorate of Free Economic Zones in Macedonia. And mind you, at the time, they had 4 ministers responsible for FDI attraction, 4 ministers. And they also had the actual investment promotion agency. And the directorate wrote to me saying that we had made a mistake. It's them who is responsible for investment attraction, and we should have included them in the research as opposed to the IPA that we did. Those 2 examples actually show me 2 things. One thing is that we disregard whatever is within the region, and the other example shows how even within the same country, within the same region, we don't understand that there are some other organizations that are doing a similar thing, and perhaps by joining forces, 2 plus 2 would be 5 as opposed to just 4. So I would like to address my panel and ask them about the biggest challenges that they have faced when it comes to encouraging that collaboration. And this is an open question, to anyone who wants to start. I'm not going to point to anyone specific. So who's going to take the first?
I can take it.
There you go.
I will be honest, we are bribing companies to collaborate.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we can, because I'm bribing my kids with sweets to do something unpleasant, but we are motivating or bribing companies to cooperate, which doesn't happen naturally. And there are more and more financial grants which are addressed for clusters, associations, for exporting, for example. You can't go get a grant and go abroad and represent yourself unless you find at least 4 friends from the same industry. And for Lithuanians, it's not easy. There are some very good clusters, like lasers, but we have been friendly for about 30 years, which is something very special about them. Filming industry has a very small but dedicated and very, very close and good cluster, but there are only like few examples I can count. So there are efforts, and it doesn't come naturally, and I think it's very deep in our culture.
We're going to talk about the cultural aspects in a moment, but Riina, what is it like in Estonia? Because, in Estonia, you would assume everyone wants to work together. Is that correct?
No, it's even worse. You see, the more up north you go, the more individual people are.
Okay.
So it's we are having the same problem, and actually the bribing issue is very, very on top of the agenda as well, as we are designing our financing measures for shipping and ports to cope with the green transition. And we have already pre-decided with the ministry that precondition for such investment support from the EU or government side that the government is substituting is cooperation. We could do it without it, but we have also envisaged this cluster concept. So bribing is a topic, yeah.
So bribing is one of the methods that we can use to encourage. Andrius, you said that you are working with other partners, and it's quite important, but do you actually see challenges as well?
Yes, I had many in my mind, but now I got a new one. Gender balance. Because, for maritime industry, gender balance is a problem. Now when I go through all of my companies and partners, we're going to need to work very heavy on that.
So maybe not to
employees. I have two little men.
Yeah, I can offer this to the companies.
Yeah, maybe not to say gender balance is a problem, but women is an unused resource for maritime.
Yeah.
Darius. Very well said. Darius, what's it like in academia?
Yeah, this is a challenge. from one side. Looking from academia perspective, we have two sides of collaboration experience. There is a part of academia, people who are very open to those who are similar to them. So it depends on if somebody works on the same topic or in the same program or whatever. So there is collaboration works very well. But the challenge for all the academias in Europe is to get closer, completely different people from different disciplines, for instance, bringing humanities or social sciences closer to the technologies and so on, because there is the innovation potential and all these new things coming when there's completely two different disciplines coming together. So there we have a huge difficulties bringing people together. And the only, I think, motivation is a good funding. So if you give a good funding, then at least the people get into the one room, and they try.
Erik, you're looking at our region, and what are your feelings? Is it similar in the Netherlands, or?
I'm afraid I can give a good example, which not everybody will like, but we receive, let's say, a lot of delegations to look at the ports, how we organized it. And they have to, of course, look at all other ports. But then, it was, I think, a year ago, I received a Baltic delegation. And then they came as a Baltic delegation, and then I always ask also, what are you looking for? What are your upcoming projects? And then they called the Elwin project. And yeah, okay, then in let's say in the break, I looked up to see more about the Elwin project, and then I asked, of course, I only see 2 of the 3 Baltic states involved. How is it possible? And that's I think a question here for the audience. How is that possible? Because in the Baltic Sea, well, apparently I think the best position also we have concluded already here today must be Klaipėda, and yeah, they were not involved in that. And
so Lithuania was not part of that.
Lithuania was not involved in the Elwin project, so that's remarkable. And yeah.
So I had a discussion with a colleague of mine recently who is originally from Ukraine, living in Portugal for more than a decade now, and I have to admit that I had a similar conversation over Teams and reconnected with her to talk about something else. And I was really annoyed after that conversation about the lack of regional collaboration. And I said to her, Alina, look, I just need to get it off me and just share it with you. And I told her, how I felt about the lack of collaboration. And she said, look, from my perspective as a Ukrainian, back in the day when I still lived in the country, we always tended to look far and sort of completely ignore whatever was close to us. And we only wanted to look at the US, the UK, just like the example from Slovenia, Germany perhaps, but anything else that is around was basically rubbish. And it made me think that, and I later spoke with Romualda, and she has projects with Japan, the US, and I think the UK as well, or just those 2. But she does not have any projects with Latvia and Poland, which are neighboring countries. What is wrong with that, actually? Like, why don't we look? And I'm not only talking about, your agency, but every single organization, and not only here, but across the region. Why aren't we looking, just like the Slovenian professor, at what can we learn, how we can collaborate with those across the border, and we look so far away?
I think there are 2 reasons. One, because close nearby countries were quite similar and we are competing because we have very similar competitive advantage. Even we don't buy strawberries from Poland, neither from Latvia, because we are somehow worse than our locally grown. So do you imagine that we would create some high-tech products with the neighbors? Of course, and there are also not the jokes, but facts. For example, for foreign direct investments, we have Poland, it's much larger, and we compete and we win, and then we are angry, so then we compete with the Estonians for the digital level, and every time we are competing for the same talents, for the similar people to move around. And but to build a competitive advantage, we need something new, something added value. And sometimes a faraway country like Japan has something to fill the gaps that you are not available. And for example, for innovations, like Japan has quality and infrastructure and production, but we don't have speed and ideas and young people. And then we merge together. This is the diversification that we combine and get this synergy. 1 + 1 is 3. And the second reason is behind the finance, about the bribing system. It's if I go directly, like Lithuania, cooperate with Estonia, and we have some agreement, we need money, we have to take money from the national budget, and that's painful because nobody wants to take from a national budget, from education, from a military, and to support this business. And now we are stuck inside the EU system, so we are all dependent on the EU funds, because like this is for all the countries, but these EU funds, we don't demand the cooperation between countries. So like Lithuania gives the money, then gets the money back, and we innovate internally in Lithuania, Lithuanian companies with Lithuanian universities, and then they don't get out. But Norway grants, they are something special because we demand to find a partner in Norway. And this is, I think, very special, and I would like to add that to other programs as well. If you want to get financing, you have to go out and find some partners which are not your friend, like next door.
I would like to comment on that as well, but because, you know, in Vilnius they have different life here. Klaipėda is completely, you know, so I have to kind of respond to that. We have projects with Polish, Latvian, Germans, Estonians, and
so
everybody else. Yes, it's not only doable, it's necessary. And one united thing is, of course, Baltic Sea. Yeah, so I mean, we are gathered by the same challenges. Yeah, the Baltic Sea, starting with pollution and transportation and whatever, inclusion and I know the university probably does the same. Because when you out of the sea, you widen your perspective. So the ocean connects nations, people, and coasts. Yeah, so I mean, you cannot be alone in the sea, because whenever you touch the sea, you're already connected to some other region. You know, it can be global. So this mindset in the maritime industry is completely necessary. Otherwise, you're not able to succeed. Simple.
But isn't it also that, you know, those challenges that you mentioned, you know, pollution and others, don't they unite the stakeholders?
First of all, they unite, but I mean, we are looking at those challenges not only from a social perspective. Yeah, so I mean, we are business organizations, so we have on board also science organizations, but on the end of the day, our result is business oriented. And what is those Baltic challenges brings us? It brings, first of all, regulation-driven demand. So it means that we have the same approach towards the Baltic Sea, and when the regulations are implemented in the Baltic Sea, all countries need to comply. So we need to go and, let's say, implement the green shipping technologies, because it's demanded for all the countries. But since we have the environmental challenge, since the Baltic Sea is the most polluted sea, we applied those regulations early. Okay. So it means we are upfront, we are developing upfront, and whatever those regulations are expanding into different regions, we already have products and services to supply. So it's kind of changing mindset that, you know, fighting with the environmental regulation or complying with the environmental regulation is beneficial for the industry, for the Baltic Sea maritime industry.
I wanted to briefly relate to what Romualda said about this competition, regional competition, and I remember my chat with Rosen Plevneliev, who is the former president of Bulgaria, and when he was trying to discuss investment in Bulgaria, and suddenly his country lost the investment, he was a neighboring country wanted, for example, again, this Macedonia. I don't know why we talked so much about Macedonia today, but let's say Montenegro. He was particularly happy that it stayed in the region because his country still benefited from that, even through the supply chain or whatever other element that was. So do you think that we should perhaps, and again, all of you, do you think we should perhaps look beyond that competition and actually see that more important common goal for the entire region? Riina, what are your thoughts?
Yes, it depends again on the horizon. If we look at the whole globe as our playground, of course, it's wise to play together if we are situated in the same Baltic Sea region. And I can actually bring an example of that. It has not been managed like this, but it's, let's say, a historical coincidence. Estonia and Finland both have rather big, let's say, boat construction industry. But the Finns, they do new buildings. But Estonians, we repair. It has been somehow like this already 100 years. And of course, we are not trying to take this new building away from Finland, but we are strengthening our refitting, retrofitting industry. So this is already one division of labor, let's say, in international scale that we see that we can strengthen forward.
Andrews, you wanted to add
Yes,
something?
I just add in line with what was already said, that a good example in maritime industry is, especially for the Baltic Sea, is cruise vessels. Yeah. So I mean, if you want to start build cruises, that's an enormous capital investment because you need to have a very large dry dock. So it's kind of naturally stable where the cruise vessels will be built. But all the region is contributing from that development simply because a lot of the supply parts or the blocks are already produced around the Baltic Sea in different shipyards, Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, whatever. And this is the only reason that they can outsource part of the work. This is how they are able to stay competitive on the global market. So I mean, when you are in the maritime, you are connected globally. So I mean, to gain the competitive advantage, you need to expand the geographical area because your competition area is much wider.
Darius, a quick question about that regional collaboration aspect within other countries with your university. Do you see that? Do you see any challenges related to that, or is it working smoothly? Do you work with the neighbors?
Generally speaking, I think it depends very much on sector, but I fully agree with what Andrews said, that in marine issues, we are marine-oriented university. So we have a more collaboration on the regional scale than on the national scale, because talking about the marine issues always in Lithuania is just talking with very few people from that sector. And yeah, I think from that perspective, we have much tighter links to the regional actors, to all the universities around the coastline. So we have direct links with them, but also the European scale. So there are much more closer links to the coastal universities in Mediterranean region from Lithuanian side, rather than links to Vilnius University sometimes, or several universities from Kaunas. But it depends on, I think, on the subject and the focus.
And if we look at the European Union now, of course, that has already enhanced collaboration big time, even through different common projects. But we see new initiatives popping up. We also see the UK, sort of slowly coming back, at least through the Horizon project. Do you think that there should be other, more unique ways of collaboration initiated by the European Union that could help and enhance that?
The last initiative, which was launched in 2019, was this European University Alliances. And the idea which came from French President Macron, that was a kind of trying to scale up European universities, because most of them in Europe, there are almost 5,000 universities. Most of them, they are small to medium-sized, up to maybe 10,000 students. But if we talk about the research people within the universities, these are few hundreds only, so per university. So there was a clear vision that we have to upscale what Andrius is talking. So, and they launched this European University Alliances. First, that was a 20, but based on the call, that was a competitive funding. And in 2024, there is a vision to have 60 of them, 60 alliances. That's a networks of the universe with the vision that in the future that will become a single legal entity, but having different branches, different in the different states. So, and that's one of these kind of alternatives to large-scale universities worldwide. And also trying to bring, being a small university dominated in Europe, you can hardly address all the aspects of regions. So because you are fragmented, you are focused on very few things and being small. So by combining this, exactly what Andrius told, that's not a cluster, but these thematic alliances that allow to upscale your infrastructure, to upscale, to share the students, and also to bring the knowledge into one hand. So, and this is, I think, one of, and in 2024, 10% of the European universities will become involved into alliances. So that's one of the trends now in academic life.
Okay, thank you, Romualda.
And I've got some good news about collaboration inside EU, because today my colleague is attending a conference in Madrid. And one of the topic, it's made by EU Commission, one of the topic is regional innovation valleys. It's a new concept, very new, it's like happening now. And innovation agencies like us, they are looking for partners between each other to make consortiums, and they will try to make technology transfer much faster and more effective on some topics like life sciences, climate change, and other top priorities. This is a very new concept, and Lithuania has an advantage because we are moderate innovators. And these consortiums, we need to be diversified. There are like highly performing innovative countries like Sweden, for example, and we may be leading country, and we are picking partners who has some good performing in the special industry and also like special level of innovations. So now we have an advantage being a lower level of innovators, but I believe in this idea, and I just hope that we will succeed in that.
I think a big thing when it comes to collaboration is related to trust and trust building. How would you see, what would be your advice, based on your experience, how would you build this trust and then also maintain the longevity of that collaboration once you started, to make sure that it's beneficial for every party involved? Riina, sorry.
I can bring one example from my port times. I worked for Port of Tallinn 12 years altogether. And one of the key projects that is actually running as Project 4 at the moment is Twin Port. And this is a cooperation between Port of Tallinn and Port of Helsinki. Actually, it was very hard to establish. But I would say that the recipe is people. You just have to build trust between these particular people that are in charge. Actually, we were able to push through the first Twinfold project only because from the Helsinki side there was a very open-minded CEO that time. They probably have a very open-minded nowadays as well, but it's not that important anymore because the first step was done then. And of course, the bribe was in the picture as well, because we were applying for some motorways of the sea EU money for building this Twinfold project together. So we had investments in Port of Tallinn and we had investments in Port of Helsinki as well. But the key why we could break through was that we came together, we looked at each other with this project port CEO, and yes, we can cooperate. And of course, drinking is is not forbidden in case you want to build trust.
Well, Erik.
Yeah, can I add to that? The same example is Malmö, Copenhagen. Another one is North Seaports, the collaboration between Vlissingen, Terneuzen, and the Belgian side as well. So there are more examples. What I would add, there was also, I have a positive example of collaboration in the UK. So not in Holland, but in the UK, when the wind farm, Siemens went to Hull. Hull was a very poor city at that stage, and Hull had a long quay, and there was a timber factory. And then Siemens wanted to have that location. So they could go to the government and say, if you don't move this timber factory, there's no Siemens here. But they did it the other way around. They went to this timber factory and asked them if they could go, let's say, 3 kilometers further on. And they say, and if you do that, we will grant you, let's say, for 10 years, I don't know the exact number of years, you make the malls for the wind blades.
Okay.
So it was, they discussed about replacing the company, but also giving them an opportunity, a new lifetime, a renewable prospect. And they also went to the municipality and said, we want to deliver teachers for bringing new knowledge about future jobs. And that helps also. So that's very positive. And then they said, well, the port is too small for only for installation. We need also a port for O&M. And then instead of saying, oh yeah, we will do that in another, they said, well, maybe Grimsby will be the place. And Grimsby is further on. So that's regional.
I can smell
collaboration.
some bribing as well.
No, but you said, well, look around the corner instead of further on. So this is an example which was around the corner.
Darius, about this trust and longevity of a collaboration project, what's your sort of advice here?
Yeah, I think first on what depends trust is the human factor. I think the people who drive the collaboration, the partnership, they should trust each other. And then I think that's the first prerequisite for the long-term.
And how to build that trust between people who don't know.
You cannot do that artificially, basically. You cannot pre-program that. You cannot manage this. I think the things which might support, if there is the people or the drivers, the persons who drive the cooperation, they fit each other, is that if they have a good top support from the top management support, so that sometimes helps to achieve, this administrative trustness. And then I think also the long-term goals, they should be very clear. So, and for the universities, we are not the business actors, so we behave completely from the different mindset than companies behave. So this is in our world, the trustness means a little bit different. So it's not like business-oriented connection to the company, but we look for the win-win on the long-term scale. This is what we are looking for. But I think the human factor is in the first row.
Riina?
Yeah, I have another angle to this cooperation issue and trust issue. I think we are doing fine. So cooperation is inevitable if you need to stay alive. But currently, we look at the issue from public sector perspective. We see that if they cooperated, they would have done better. But if they wouldn't cooperate, they would do okay. And this is why the bribe is on the table, because we need them to do better. But they themselves, as private actors, they say that we are fine, don't push us, actually. So this is, again, a matter of balance. And if they would really struggle with their economies or their companies, they would, I say they, it's not very nice, it's like we, actually. We would cooperate more if our survival would depend on that. But since it isn't, maybe yet, then we just don't do it as a prior thing.
Andrews, quickly about this trust issue.
So, in my experience, I only managed to build trust on human relationship because I don't know any other way. And there is plenty of tools to do that. It's Gina Stonica, Scuba Libre, and on and on and on. So, of course, people can go do sports together. It's also an option.
Okay. If I were to pick one word from this panel discussion, I think the word bribing would be number one. But what I would like to do is to ask you for one word that would summarize the discussion that is other than bribing, that would definitely enhance regional collaboration. Who wants to go first? Andrews is nodding, so go ahead.
I was thinking, well, no matter. Yeah, I probably would focus on competitive advantage, you know, because if you want to be competitive, you need to collaborate. And that's the only way how you can gain the resources or capacity to do or be so.
Romualda.
I've heard that maritime business has no problems with collaboration. It's something difficult to help you. But I would go even further with disruptive innovations, because if you are so good in your industry and your horizontal relations, you should go and look at other areas, other industries, because only then big things happen when you steal the good ideas from outside your bubble. So bribing and stealing.
Industry.
Stealing, second one.
So bribing and stealing. Okay.
Sorry, I love detectives. So and cherchez la femme. Yeah, it's always a woman behind. Yeah.
Riina.
I would say balance, whether it's a gender balance, whether it's a balanced development in the region or in the port community, but balance is something that helps us forward.
Darius.
What comes to my mind is win-win. So the cooperation is only possible when all sides they are winning from that, they're benefiting. Otherwise, it's not long-lasting. It's a short-term business, and it's basically sell and buy. So it's win-win should be for both sides.
Erik?
I could think the longest, so, but that doesn't make it easy. But I should shed two words: sharing and mindset.
I like the word mindset because this is how we were starting the conversation. We talked about the mindset quite a bit, and I mentioned that during the intro. So let's stick to those 6 words, including the stealing and the bribing, and hopefully we will develop regional collaboration and cross-border collaboration going forward. Thank you very much for staying with us, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion.